What's going on, guys? It's Seth with another Defense Wins Fantasy podcast, part of the Fantasy Holics Podcast Network. As promised, as last week we did the AFC Breakout Look Back after 6 weeks in. We did the NFC last week. We're doing the AFC this week. That being said, I had a pretty good hit percentage talking about the NFC. I think 12 no-doubters, 2 that are kind of young players that are starting to start rising in that direction, and then 2 that were just flat-out misses. No, I'm going to be honest, I did not hit that well on the AFC side, but the ones that I did hit on are fantastic, and all in all, I think I did fairly good as far as preseason predictions thus far. And once again, it's early. These could turn south or they could turn north. We'll see how it all plays out. We're going to start off talking about the AFC East Patriots and Jawan Bentley, linebacker. Now, he's had some solid games this year. Don't get me wrong. He's not been what I would call just an absolute terrible bust type of player. Twice this year, he's had double-digit tackles in games, but sadly, that's been the highlights of his year. He's not had any big plays so far this year, and 4 out of the 7 games, he's had 5 tackles or less. And if you're not getting sacks, interceptions, that kind of stuff, 5 tackles as a linebacker is just not going to cut it as a starter for your team. My expectations was him becoming the next stud Patriot linebackers when it comes to tackles. He has the ability to put up solid numbers. We've seen that a couple times this year, but nothing has been week winning level capability. You'd kind of hope that he might be that tank for your team where, you're going to get that 8 to 12 tackles every single week, but we're not seeing that either. And he's proven actually that his floor is extremely low as well, with having 1 game of just 1 assisted tackle so far this year. So currently on this guy, I'm punting on my prediction. I don't think it's going to be one that comes to fruition by the end of the year. Next team up is the Bills. My preseason breakout prediction was Gregory Rousseau, and he did not disappoint, starting the year on fire. 4 sacks in the first 4 games. Now he has cooled off, given an actual goose egg in week 5, which was quite shocking, and then a 1 tackle performance in week 6. So back-to-back, holy cow, what's going on? Had their bye week last week, and we'll see what happens going into this week rather. But that being said, he's still playing much better than he did his rookie year. He's still getting more opportunities than he did his rookie year. He's shown that he can put up the points in a game and consistently do it. He did it for the first 4 weeks of the season. And he's still a top 20 D end in fantasy at this point in time. And pair that with his age, which he's just 22 years old, I'd say he's hitting on this prediction so far and has the opportunity to continue to skyrocket, especially in dynasty leagues. I know, I traded him away before the season. Ugh, not my best decision so far, but it's all about the value you get back. You can't be mad about a player doing well that you expected to do well, and people traded for that person to do well. Just be happy with what you got, I suppose. It's easy to say that, right? Going on to the Dolphins, my breakout candidate was Javon Holland, safety. Holland is performing as predicted, in my opinion, when it comes to big plays. 2 interceptions so far, a sack and a half on the season, and his tackles have also been up. He's been averaging 4.8 tackles a game, up from 3 a game last year. That being said, his consistency has not been what I would call a bright spot, but he's still in the top 20 DBs on the season so far. His big plays have been beneficial, and he's had the tackles when he's needed to. Now, with the news of fellow safety Byron Jones is heading to the IR with a torn ACL, the rest of that secondary has also been very banged up so far this year, but I'm unsure how it's going to impact his performance. One thing I do feel that's going to happen is I do feel he's going to get more of the blitzing opportunities that went to Byron Jones before. just like, or sorry, not Byron Jones, Brandon Jones, the safety. Byron Jones has yet to play for the Dolphins this year at all, so also still on the IR, so I wasn't technically wrong. But Brandon Jones tore his ACL, and so he's going to the IR, and him and Holland timed up sacks very well. The blitz is coming off the edge very well. With Eric Rowe, most likely the guy that's going to take over for Brandon Jones, he does not have that instinct nor that speed coming off the edge to be that guy. He's been very good at covering tight ends, but he's not been a sack kind of guy. So I think that Holland is going to get more opportunities there. But I'm not sure if they're going to bring him into the box at a higher rate than he has been now, or if they're going to use Eric Rowe in that situation. In any case, with Tua back, he should be in better game scripts to get some big plays and some tackles downfield as they continue to try to throw the ball. So far, so good for Javon Holland. Jets. My breakout candidate for the Jets was Jordan Whitehead. And Whitehead's not exploded as a safety for the Jets as I thought he would. I felt it was very scheme-driven with Marcus May and Saleh coming from the 49ers, having good history of good safeties there. Turns out there's probably a little bit more to it, but he's not been bad. Consistency's been around 5 tackles a game, which should land him around 80 tackles at the end of the season for a safety. Solid floor. But his floor and his ceiling have not been very far apart. Like 2 points a week, not very far apart. But they've been consistent. But, and the Jets have played well so far this year. And hopefully, as he gets more comfortable in the scheme, it is still his first year here, he starts to make a little bit more of an impact in some of the bigger plays. We will have to just kind of wait and see to see how that one kind of unfolds. So that moves us into the AFC South predictions. We're going to start with the Colts and Julian Blackmon, safety. Swing and a miss on this one. The position has value. I knew it would. I knew that the safety for the Colts would be beneficial. The problem is that there's been a split between Julian Blackmon, Rodney McLeod, and Nick Cross. McLeod having the highest snap percentage out of the 3. But at this point, none are worth starting, and only Cross is worth rostering in a dynasty. But they've pulled back his snap percentages due to not playing well, not performing well. Hell, the whole entire Colts team has been just an absolute dumpster fire this year. So you'd expect that, their offense has been so bad that the defense would be on the field more, get more opportunities. But with the split of snaps, it's just not been there. Moving on to the Texans and Derek Stingley Jr. That was my breakout candidate. What has he done? He's a top 10 cornerback so far this year. He's getting targeted early and often, as we expected. QBs like to test the young cornerbacks to see how good they really are. Well, he's on pace for 100 tackles as a cornerback in 3 picks. 100 tackles. I don't think he'll continue that pace of tackles, but it's worth knowing that that's where he's kind of trending at. He's getting the pass defenses. He's getting the opportunity for some picks. As long as he stays healthy, he has the opportunity to remain in the top 10 for cornerbacks this year. Titans, Zach Cunningham was my breakout player. And he was injured in week 3 contest. And before that, though, he was just okay. Nothing to write home about. An all right, probably 3rd LB on your team. He's expected to come back this week. So time will tell if this is if this player will ascend to the high percentages and get the tackles and everything that we kind of expected that he would for the Titans. But as of now, it's a wait and see, just due to injury. And like I said, he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't anything really spectacular before then. Final team for the AFC South. The Jaguars, my breakout candidate, was Devin Lloyd. Dude is a bona fide stud. Rookie year, on pace for 150-plus tackles. He's got 2 interceptions already this year. Half sack to go with that. And 6 pass defenses, which is more pass defenses than Derek Stingley Jr. has. He knows where the passes are going. He's always around the ball. He will be a top linebacker for years to come, and he should be considered Defensive Rookie of the Year front runner, in my opinion. And he isn't currently, so if you like to make those kinds of bets, I would go and make that one now. Moving on to the AFC North. My Ravens breakout pick, Kyle Hamilton. Not looking good for the young kid. In fact, from the first couple weeks of the season, he's gone from 50% snap down to 35% last game. Which last game, point-wise, was his best fantasy game of his career. But what's even more concerning about that 35% is that even with fellow safety Marcus Williams on the IR, Hamilton hasn't gotten the nod for more playing time. Dynasty-wise, he's obviously still a hold. Redraft-wise, I'd find somebody else. He's not getting enough opportunities to be anywhere near a consistent candidate, and you can find better players at this point in time in their careers than him. Next one up, the Bengals breakout player Logan Wilson. And to be honest, I was a bit surprised at his stats when I went to look him up. I feel like he's been a pretty solid linebacker, and that's what he has been, I guess. But he got injured in Week 6, missed Week 7, which has been an issue for him, injuries. So far, he's had 25 tackles, a pick, and no sacks. He's had good, not great, still starter worthy because of some of the the interception and some of the pass defense, but he needs to pick up on the big plays to be a top 5 guy, like I predicted that he would be. And the tackle numbers are just not there as far as making you feel good about starting him week in and week out. So at this point, I would say it's a miss, but it is a long season, and my expectations for him were very high. So for him to get to that level would be tough, but I think he can still do it. But at this point, you gotta play the hand you're dealt, and it's not looking like he's going to be a top 5 linebacker by the end of the year. Moving on to the Browns, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was my breakout player, and he has been boom or bust so far this year, which is odd considering that he has had no picks or sacks this year. So how are you having your boom games? How are you having bust games if they're all tackle related? Well, his usage has been all over the place when it comes to percentage-wise. He has been a little banged up. But you gotta chalk up his boom bust to coaching and opportunities given. There's still a lot of the year left. He's still a young player with a lot to learn. And as I said, he's been kind of banged up, so that could be hindering some of his usage. You don't really know. I think he will probably finish in the top 36 linebackers, but that's not extremely impressive, so I'm a little down on him actually getting into the top 24 or even top 50 linebackers by the end of the year, just because the usage has been so varied, it's hard to tell. Final player of the AFC North, my breakout candidate for the Steelers was Alex Highsmith, who is just behind Matthew Judon and Nick Bosa for the league leader in sacks. He's got 6.5 so far this year, and the guy has been destroying opponent offenses. Surprisingly, he put up a goose egg last week against the Dolphins, which the Dolphins' offensive line is not strong by any stretch of the imagination. But they were trying to throw the ball, I think, as fast as possible so that Tua was at least coherent after one of his games this year. So this might be the time to offer a trade for him, to get him, that is, because the owner might be bitter that he got a goose egg. You hate having that, and that's just how it is. So you might get to a little bit of a discount. Maybe not, but it's worth at least checking it out. And finally, we move to the AFC West. Broncos was the first team we were looking at. Breakout player was Patrick Surtain Jr. Dude got too good too soon. Denver defense has been great this year as well. The offense has been dreadful, not giving them leads and forcing opponents to have to throw towards Surtain if they were behind, but the games have been so close that they can try to do whatever their offense is best at and try to avoid throwing at the best corner on the Denver Broncos. So what's that mean about all that is that it's led to no picks and mediocre fantasy points, because when you get really good cornerbacks in the NFL, they are really bad at fantasy. I have said that 1,000 times, and I will continue to say that. Do not get great corners as your starters. You need the guys that get beat and then tackle the guy to get points. Then once in a while, get an interception. Now, don't get me wrong. I'd love to have Surtain on my real life team. But in fantasy, his value is falling and will continue to fall. So trade him before you can't if you still have him on your team. I thought we might get another year out of him, but it turns out he's pretty good. For the Chargers, my breakout player was Nasir Adderley, safety, next to Derwin James. Tackles have not been there for him, and that's been a big issue when you're trying to get some baseline consistency as a safety. At this point, he's not good enough to be rostered, so that one stinks. Granted, that defense was hard to pick somebody that wasn't named Derwin James or Joey Bosa. It is what it is. Just a guy that I wouldn't even be rostering at this point in time. Now we're moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs breakout player, Nick Bolton. I'm going to be honest, even I'm a little surprised with how well Nick Bolton has played this year. 70 tackles in 7 games. Last year, he had 112 for the season. He's at 70 in 7 games. And throw in a couple sacks to go along with that. He's currently a top-end performing linebacker. I don't see that changing. The efficiency levels that were so high last year on his tackles have basically maintained. He's just on the field more. He's getting more opportunity, and he's coming into his own. He is the leader of that defense, as I talked about in the preseason podcast regarding this breakout player. It has shown they need to have better defense, and especially against the run, and Bolton has stepped up this year. The final player that we're going to talk about for the Las Vegas Raiders. That's like 3 years. I should get that by now. My breakout candidate, Max Crosby. Before this year, Max Crosby has been a good NFL player, but not a good fantasy player. At least not a great fantasy player. Throw that to the side. 6 sacks in 6 games, as well as 35 tackles. Guy's playing at the level that they paid him to play at. He's on pace for 18 sacks, which, it's 6 games, whatever. I think he can do it, man. Like, he is, if you watched him this year, he is a monster out there. He's putting it all together. Unless they start double and triple teaming this dude or try to chip him every single time, he's going to continue to get to the quarterback. This was a moonshot out of the park for this one. For a guy that was outside the top 20 DNs last year to currently ranked In some scoring systems, 1. In most scoring systems, top 5. Just an absolute monster so far this year, and I don't see him slowing down. Max Crosby has the talent, and man, they should have just got something not named Keelan Farrell at 4 in that draft. But I think he's like the only first-round pick he's still on the team from like the last 4 years. So, got that going for you, I guess. It's not saying too much. But that's kind of where we're looking at the breakout and bust predictions. So just going back through really quick, as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 out of the 16 that are lock it in breakouts. Probably another 2 that were definitely, have the opportunity still. That being, Logan Wilson, and even JOK. I won't put Zach Cunningham because I don't feel good about that one. So, pretty solid percentages overall as far as where the expectation has been. Not too many injury-riddled ones either on both sides, NFC and AFC. I think only 3 people that really have been something of injuries that might have been catastrophic or have missed enough time to make it question. Biggest surprise, I think, for me has been Kyle Hamilton's lack of usage. I mean, he must not be picking up the playbook, or maybe he's just not. Maybe that 40 time really matters. He's not able to stay with NFL wide receivers when it comes to speed. Who knows? We'll just have to wait and see how that one pans out. But it is what it is. Can't bat 1,000, or I'd already be in the Hall of Fame. But we'll continue to move forward and try to understand this landscape that is defensive players in football. So until next week, remember that defense wins fantasy. We'll see you later.